There's a reason Japanese cars dominate every single reliability survey on the planet. And no, it's not just better build quality. It's not tighter tolerances. It's not even the legendary Toyota production system, although that's part of it. It's something way more specific. Something built into the car you're probably driving right now. A function sitting right there on your dashboard or center console that Japanese engineers specifically designed to protect your engine, your transmission, your brakes, and your wallet. And here's what kills me. Roughly 99% of drivers in North America have never used it. Some don't even know it exists. That changes today. Look, I need to set something up before we get into the specifics. Japanese automakers, Toyota, Honda, Subaru, Mazda, don't just build cars to run well. They build cars to protect themselves. And that's a fundamentally different engineering philosophy than what you get from most American or European manufacturers. Think about it this way. A German car is engineered for performance within a service interval. It expects you to bring it in every 10,000 miles, like clockwork, and if you don't, things start to degrade. An American car is engineered for broad appeal, comfort, features, price point. But a Japanese car is engineered with the assumption that you might forget, that you might skip a service, that you might drive it 15,000 miles past your oil change and not think twice about it. So, what did Japanese engineers do? They built quiet, self-protective systems, functions that work in the background, or that sit there waiting for you to activate them, specifically to reduce wear on the components that cost the most to replace. And your dealership? They almost never mention these. There's no money in telling you how to make your car last longer. That's not cynicism, by the way. That's just business. The service department benefits when you come in more often, not less. So let me walk you through the functions that Japanese engineers actually intended for you to use. And once you see these, I promise you, you'll never drive the same way again. Here's the big one. And for a lot of you, this is going to be the feature that changes everything. It's called brake hold. And if you drive a Toyota made after 2018, a Honda made after 2016, a Subaru made after 2017, or a Mazda made after 2019, there's about an 85% chance your car has this function. Right now, on your dashboard, a little button that probably says hold, or auto hold, or has a circle with the word hold inside it. Here's what it does. When you come to a stop at a red light or in traffic, you press the brake pedal like normal. The car stops. But then, and this is the key, you can take your foot completely off the brake. The car stays put. No rolling, no creeping. It holds itself there electronically until you press the gas again. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. That's it? That's the big secret? Stay with me. Here's what's actually happening under the surface. When you sit at a red light with your foot on the brake, you're applying constant hydraulic pressure to the brake calipers. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes in heavy traffic. That constant clamping pressure accelerates pad wear, heats the rotors unevenly, and puts sustained stress on the caliper pistons and slide pins. Over thousands of stops across the life of the car, this adds up significantly. Brake hold releases most of that hydraulic pressure and instead uses the electronic parking brake actuator to hold the vehicle. The calipers partially release. The pads aren't being crushed against the rotors under constant force. The system is designed to hold the car with the minimum force necessary, not the maximum force your foot is applying. Fleet managers figured this out years ago. Commercial fleets running Honda CR-Vs and Toyota RAV4s started training drivers to use brake hold and documented a measurable reduction in brake service intervals. We're talking 15 to 30% longer pad life, depending on driving conditions. And there's a second benefit nobody talks about. Your transmission. When you're sitting at a light in drive with your foot on the brake, the torque converter is still transmitting force against the brakes. The transmission fluid is still circulating under load. With brake hold, many systems shift the transmission into a semi-neutral state, reducing that parasitic load on the drivetrain. Less heat in the transmission fluid. Less wear on the torque converter. Less stress on components that cost $2,000 or more to rebuild. All from one button. That was already there. Here's the thing about Japanese cars that drives me a little crazy. They're trying to talk to you. Literally. And almost nobody listens. If you drive a Honda or Acura, you have something called the maintenance minder system. And most people see that little wrench icon pop up on the dash and think it means one thing: oil change. It doesn't. Or rather, it doesn't only mean that. Honda's system uses a main code and subcodes. The main code, A or B, tells you whether you need a minor or major service. But the number that follows it, that's where real intelligence is. 1 means tire rotation. A 2 means air filter and cabin filter. A 3 means transmission fluid. A 4 means spark plugs. A 5 means coolant. A 6 means rear differential fluid, if you've got all-wheel drive. So when your dash says B123, it's not speaking gibberish. It's telling you exactly which components need attention right now, based on your actual driving conditions, not a generic interval, not a calendar guess. Your car is monitoring your driving habits. How hard you brake, how often you accelerate, aggressively what temperature range you drive in, and calculating service needs in real time. This is brilliant engineering, and it's completely wasted on 90% of Honda owners because the dealership just says, "You're due for service," without ever explaining what those codes mean. Toyota does something similar, though less granular. That main REQD light that comes on every 5,000 miles? It's a trigger. But Toyota also embeds diagnostic readiness monitors in the ECU that track your driving patterns between services. If you have a good OBD2 scanner, and I mean a decent one, not a $12 Amazon special, you can actually read the system's assessment of component condition. Here's what that actually means for you. Instead of walking into a dealership and saying, "The light came on," you walk in and say, "My maintenance minder is showing B13, so I need an oil change, tire rotation, and transmission fluid service." You just saved yourself from being upsold on the 17 other things they were about to recommend. Knowledge is literally money in your pocket. Now let me address something I see constantly online, and it drives me up the wall. People hate auto start-stop. Look, I get it. The engine shutting off at every red light feels weird. It feels wrong. Your gut says, "That can't be good for the starter," or "That's got to be hard on the engine." And so the first thing most people do is hit the disable button every single time they start the car. Here's the reality, and I need you to hear this part carefully. Japanese engineered start-stop systems are not the same as what you find in a lot of European or American vehicles. They're just not. Toyota, Honda, and Mazda specifically redesigned critical components to handle start-stop cycling. Enhanced starters rated for 400,000 or more cycles. A conventional starter is rated for maybe 50,000. Bearings with different coatings. Ring gears with additional hardening. Low viscosity oil specifically formulated to maintain film strength during the restart microsecond when the crankshaft begins turning again. The data shows something surprising. In Japanese market testing, where start-stop has been standard for much longer than in North America, engine wear patterns on start-stop equipped vehicles were statistically identical to those without the feature over 200,000 kilometers. The engineers accounted for this. They overbuilt the system deliberately. Now here's the trade-off, and I'll be honest about this. If you live somewhere extremely cold, I'm talking sustained temperatures below -10 Fahrenheit, or if you routinely make trips under 2 minutes, there are legitimate arguments for disabling start-stop under those specific conditions. Cold oil doesn't circulate fast enough, and ultra-short trips don't let the system reach optimal operating temperature. But the other 95% of driving conditions, you're better off leaving it on. Because here's what start-stop is actually protecting: your catalytic converter and your fuel system. Every minute your engine idles unnecessarily, unburned fuel washes past the piston rings and dilutes your oil. The catalytic converter processes exhaust it doesn't need to process. The fuel system cycles needlessly. Japanese engineers didn't add start-stop to annoy you. They added it because the data told them your engine lasts longer with it on than with it off. Here's one that's going to surprise a lot of people. That snowflake button on your console. The snow mode, or sometimes it's labeled ECT Snow. It isn't just for driving in snowstorms, and the fact that it only gets mentioned in the winter driving section of your owner's manual is honestly a disservice. Here's what snow mode actually does in most Japanese vehicles. It starts the car in second gear instead of first, and it softens the throttle map. That's the winter driving part. It reduces wheel spin on slippery surfaces. Pretty straightforward. But think about what that means for your transmission in everyday driving. First gear is where the most mechanical stress occurs, the highest torque multiplication, the most aggressive gear ratio, the hardest work for the clutch packs and bands in an automatic transmission. So what happens when you're in heavy stop-and-go traffic on a hot summer day and your transmission is cycling between first and second gear hundreds of times in an hour? Fluid temperature spikes. Internal components take a beating. And most people just sit there in drive and let the transmission do its thing. Snow mode changes that equation. In stop-and-go traffic, yes, even. In July, starting in second gear reduces the mechanical shock on every single launch. The gear engagement is softer. The torque multiplication is lower. The transmission fluid runs cooler. It's a gentler operating profile that Japanese engineers built in for winter roads, but that applies perfectly to the exact conditions that kill transmissions. Slow, repetitive, stop-and-go driving in heat. Now let me be clear about the trade-off. You lose some acceleration responsiveness. Merging onto a highway in snow mode would be sluggish and potentially unsafe. This isn't an all-the-time solution. It's a strategic tool for specific conditions. Heavy traffic, parking lots, crawling through construction zones. The situations where your transmission is working hardest for the least benefit. And here's the key. Toyota and Subaru engineers have acknowledged that these modes were designed with broader utility than their names suggest. The name Snow was a marketing decision. The engineering benefit is universal. One more, and this one is small, but it adds up over years. The recirculation button on your climate control. The one with the little arrow going in a circle. Most people either leave it on all the time or never touch it. Both are wrong. And the timing matters more than you'd think. When you first start your car on a hot day, you should run the AC in fresh air mode, not recirculation, for the first 60 to 90 seconds. The reason is simple. The air inside a parked car that's been sitting in the sun can be 140 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. Your AC system is trying to cool that superheated air, and it's working at maximum compressor load to do it. If you hit recirculation immediately, you're asking the system to cool that oven temperature air in a closed loop. The compressor is maxed out. The evaporator is straining. But if you open fresh air mode first and crack a window for 1 minute, you flush that superheated air out and replace it with outside air that might be 90 or 95 degrees. Then you switch to recirculation. Now the system is cooling 95-degree air in a closed loop instead of 160-degree air. Compressor load drops. The evaporator isn't working as hard. The blower motor isn't running at maximum speed for as long. Over the life of the car, this habit reduces wear on the AC compressor, extends the life of the blower motor resistor, which is a surprisingly common failure point, and even helps the cabin filter last longer because you're not forcing superheated air through it. Japanese owners' manuals, particularly Toyota and Honda, actually reference this technique in the climate control section, but it's buried in fine print that nobody reads. The engineers knew, they just couldn't make you do it. So let me pull this all together, because these aren't random features, there's a pattern here. Japanese automakers engineer with a concept that doesn't have a clean English translation, but the closest phrase is probably built-in care. The idea is that the vehicle should be designed to tolerate the owner's imperfection, to protect itself even when the driver isn't thinking about protection. Brake hold reduces wear when you're just sitting at a light, not thinking about your brakes. Maintenance Minder tells you what you need when you need it, based on how you actually drive. Start-stop protects your engine during idle time you weren't even aware was causing damage. Snow mode shields your transmission during exactly the conditions where damage accumulates invisibly. This is why a well-maintained Toyota Corolla or Honda Civic can hit 300,000 miles. It's not magic, it's not luck. It's engineering that works even when the driver doesn't know it's there. And when you actually learn to use these systems intentionally, that's when you move from driving a reliable car to getting every single mile that car was designed to give you. You just learned more about protecting your car in 15 minutes than most people absorb in years of ownership. And here's the thing. These features are already in your car. They're already paid for. All you have to do is use them. I'm putting together a deep dive on Japanese versus German engineering philosophy. Specifically why these two approaches produce such radically different ownership experiences after 100,000 miles. If that sounds like something you want to see, hit subscribe so it actually shows up in your feed. And drop a comment below. Which one of these functions did you not know about? I'm genuinely curious how many of you have been driving around with brake hold available and never pressed the button. I read every comment. I'll see you in the next one.